Somewhere along the way, you signed a contract. You didn't know you were signing it. Nobody handed it to you. Nobody explained the terms. And there was no negotiation, but you signed it. And you have been honoring it every day ever since. And the contract says things like, put your needs last. Don't ask for too much. Keep the peace. Make sure everyone is comfortable. Everyone except you. And here's the part that most people never see. You didn't write that contract, but you've been living like you did. You know what I'm talking about. You've been in rooms where you've made yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. You've said yes when everything in you was saying no. Not because you were afraid of no, but because somewhere underneath all of that, something in you believed that saying no would cost you something that you couldn't afford to lose. The connection, the approval, your place in the group. So you kept the peace. You put your needs at the back of the line. You were the reliable one, the easygoing one, the one who never caused a problem. And you were good at it. So good that the people around you stopped noticing that you were doing it. And if I'm being honest, so did you. It stopped feeling like a choice a long time ago. It just felt like who you are, like your personality, like the kind of person you've always been. But here's what I want to say to you today. That is not your personality. That is a pattern. And patterns have a source. I've watched people find this. The moment when the pattern becomes visible for the first time, what people describe is not relief, exactly. It's something quieter than that. Something closer to recognition. Like finally seeing a word you've been mispronouncing your whole life. And there's a sting in that. And there's something that feels like freedom. That's where this is going. Every person walking around on this planet is operating inside a set of agreements they never consciously made. Agreements about what they deserve, about how much space they're allowed to take up, about what happens if they ask for too much, or they need too much, or they are too much. These agreements were not formed in adulthood. They were not formed after crucial reflection. They were formed early, before language, before logic, before you had any way of questioning them. Something happened. It might have been dramatic. It might have been completely ordinary, but your nervous system registered it as a decision. A decision that sounded something like, this is how things work. This is what I need to do to be safe. This is how I become loved. This is what I need to do to belong. And that decision became a contract. And that contract became a pattern. And that pattern became so familiar that eventually you weren't able to see it at all. I call this the identity driver. It's the invisible pattern formed before you had a choice, and it has been running your behavior, your reactions, and your results ever since. And here is what makes it so hard to see. The identity driver doesn't feel like a pattern. It feels like you. It feels like your nature, your temperament, just the kind of person that you are, which is exactly what makes it so powerful, and exactly what makes it so costly. You can't question a contract that you don't know you signed. You can only keep honoring it until the day something happens that makes you hungry enough, in every sense of that word, to finally look at it. I want to tell you about a client of mine. She went on holiday with a group of close friends of hers. Costa Rica, the kind of trip that people have been planning for months. While she was there, She got sick. Nothing serious, but her stomach was off and she couldn't eat very much. They went to a restaurant one evening and she ordered rice, the one thing that she felt like she could handle. But she had to leave early. She still wasn't feeling better. The rice wasn't ready yet. So the agreement was the group would bring the rice home for her. They didn't bring it. They'd had quite a few drinks. They forgot. And honestly, they were a little hungry themselves. She was sick and she wasn't there, and it didn't seem like a big deal. So they ate it. But when they got back, she was hungry. She asked for the rice, and they told her, "We're sorry, we ate it. We didn't think you'd mind since you weren't feeling well." And something in her snapped for the first time. She got angry, not irritated, genuinely angry. She told them they were inconsiderate, and they looked at her like they didn't recognize her. Because they didn't. They said, "Why are you acting like this? You're never like this." And then it got worse. There was a group text among all the girlfriends about how she was behaving, about how this wasn't like her, about how her reaction seemed so completely out of proportion. And from the outside, you could understand that. It was rice. It was an accident. They apologized. But she wasn't upset about the rice. She was upset because she finally saw something that she'd never been able to see before. She had always been like this with them. She had always put her needs at the back of the line. Always made sure that everyone else was comfortable first. Always absorbing the small cost so the group could keep moving smoothly. She had done it so consistently, so automatically, that her friends didn't even notice anymore. Not because they were cruel, because she had trained them not to notice. And that's the word that she used when we talked about it. Trained. She said, "I trained them to treat me this way. I taught them what I was worth by what I accepted." And then I was furious when they had learned the lesson. She also said something that I think about a lot. She said she was tired of everyone else writing their own stories and putting her in their stories. She had decided it was time to write her own story. And then she did something that takes real courage. She didn't blame her friends. She didn't send the group text defending herself. She looked back at all the years of all the patterns, and she took full responsibility. Full responsibility for who she had been, and full responsibility for who she was going to be moving forward. She told her friends she was changing, that she would not play that part anymore, that it was up to each of them to decide whether they wanted to stay around or not. And some of them left. She told me she doesn't experience that as a loss exactly. She said, "It's just what needs to happen for me to have what I actually deserve." Here's what the story is really about. Her friends did not suddenly become inconsiderate in Costa Rica. They were always exactly who they were. What changed is that she finally read the contract that she'd been living under. And that contract said, your needs come last. Your comfort is optional. Your place in the group depends on how little you ask for. She didn't write those terms consciously. She absorbed them early from something that happened. Something in her nervous system decided before she was old enough to question it. And for years, for decades, she honored that contract perfectly. Not because she was weak, because she was operating exactly the way the driver told her to operate. The driver's job is to keep you safe, to keep you accepted, to keep you belonging. And for a long time, the contract worked. It did exactly what it was designed to do, until the cost of honoring it became higher than the cost of breaking it until she got hungry enough. The contract was written before she could read, but she was the only one who could rewrite it. I'm not going to tell you what your contract says. I don't know what yours says. It's different for everyone. It was formed in different moments, under different circumstances, with different terms. But I know this, you have one. And somewhere in your life, in a relationship, in a pattern that keeps repeating, in a moment where you found yourself furious about something that seemed so small, you've already felt it. You felt degrees of it. The anger that doesn't match the situation, the exhaustion that doesn't match the workload, the loneliness that doesn't match the number of people around you. Those are not character flaws. They are not overreactions. They're signals. The contract is showing itself. And the only question that matters, is whether you're ready to read it. My client didn't find freedom in blaming her friends. She found it by taking full responsibility for the agreement that she had been honoring without knowing that it existed. That's what this work is. Not fixing what's broken, not becoming someone different. Reading the contract you didn't sign and deciding for the first time whether you want to keep living by it. That's the sting I mentioned at the beginning. And then on the other side of that sting, that's freedom. If something in this landed for you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Until next time.